Hello, Dr. Andrea Maxim, naturopathic doctor and the creator of the Maxim movement. And I've already posted 2 videos on the basics of healthy eating as well as the 3 P's to help you maximize your munchies. So I figured we might as well talk about where the root is of where we're getting our foods, and that's in the grocery store. So if we look at this very basic diagram, ultimately the only 2 sections I shop in are the whole food and fresh food section as well as the natural health food section. And that's really something that's going to significantly cut down on your grocery store shopping because we're avoiding a lot of, if not 2/3 of the grocery store. And so if you just know where you need to go, what you need to get, and you can get out, then you have lots of time to spend with your family, doing other things, reading, and just kind of doing what you need to do to be you. So the last video that I posted was about the 3 P's of how to maximize your munchies, and those P's are plan, pick, and prepare. So the big thing that we have to do is we have to really plan what we're going to have for the week, plan our meals out, plan our snacks, and then of course create a grocery store list and stick to it. We don't want to go to the grocery store hungry because then we're always going to buy way more than we want, and we definitely want to be picking just the foods that we need. Number one, to decrease on spoilage, because what's going to happen is we're going to overconsume and we're going to have so much food that we're not going to be able to eat it all, and we want to be able to, as soon as we get home, prepare it properly as well. The next thing we want to do, as I mentioned, is we want to avoid particular aisles. So you definitely want to stay away from a lot of the man-made prepackaged stuff, like the chips and the frozen sections, and even, the deli meats we want to stay away from. Not necessarily saying that meats are bad, but the more they've been handled by man, the more they've been smoked or added chemicals to in order to preserve them, the more they may affect you and your health. So we want to stay away from those sections as well. And read labels, and this is really what the rest of the video presentation is going to be on, is how to really read your labels in a very basic way to pick out the foods that you do not want to be having in your diet, in your bodies. So if we look at the next thing here, this is a typical nutrition label. Now, a lot of my patients will immediately look at the calorie amount per serving. And this is really something you shouldn't be looking at. For me, it's kind of the 4th thing that I look at. What I really look at more than anything else is the list of ingredients first, because I want to see what kind of chemicals are in it, do I understand all the foods that are in it, so on and so on. And then I will look at the amount of protein, I'll look at the amount of fiber, I'll look at the amount of fat, and then I tend to look at the calories. One of the sneaky things that companies have been able to figure out is when they say that there's 0 sugar, 0 fat, 0 calories per serving, what they've actually done is they've been able to determine what a negligible amount would be per that serving size. So let's say in order for fat to be put onto a label, you need to have at minimum 1/2 gram per serving size. And if at 1/2 cup there is 1/4 gram, then potentially the companies can get away by saying that there's 0 fat, which is kind of sneaky and very misleading. So that's why I really don't look at calories, and I try to look at, well, what are the ingredients that we're eating, because if your body doesn't recognize the ingredient, or if you don't recognize the ingredient, then your body won't either. So we're kind of going to break down this nutrition labeling system one by one. So for instance, here's our hidden fats. Number 1, we're going to see a lot of soybean oil, a lot of soy lecithin, and particularly here we're seeing partially hydrogenated fats. Partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated fats are what we tend to find in margarine. And to be completely honest, fat really shouldn't be soft or spreadable when it's at refrigerated temperatures. So there in of itself, you know that something's been manipulated there in order to allow the fats to be very soft. What we want to do is we want to be looking more for organic butters, coconut oils, olive oils, things like that, as opposed to the hydrogenated oils, because those tend to cause a lot of the clogging up of the arteries and a lot of the cardiovascular diseases that we're seeing. Of course, when it comes to seeing soy or soybean, anything in your label, if the product doesn't say not genetically modified or if it doesn't say organic, then you can guarantee that that soybean oil has been genetically modified, as it is one of the top most genetically modified vegetables on the planet. Here we have sugars to avoid or minimize, not minimalize. Of course, we have our bad ones like sucrose and corn sweeteners and corn syrups and even fruit juice concentrates I'm not the biggest fan of. But we are going to see things like honey, raw sugar, brown sugar, cane sugar, palm sugar, fructose, glucose. And these are technically natural sugars, but of course you want to be looking at the amount that's in there. And often you might find a few of these different sugars in there. So if we look at a label again, the big one that we're going to see a lot is going to be corn syrup. We're going to see a lot of dextrose. We're going to see a lot of glucose. We're going to see a lot of fructose. So you really want to be avoiding those as much as you possibly can. However, if you do see white sugar, brown sugar, at least you can recognize what those ingredients are. It's more the artificial sweeteners that we want to be staying away from. And those artificial sweeteners include aspartame, saccharin, acesulfame K, sucralose, sorbitol, mannitol, and so on. And if we break it down, the top four that I really despise, and I'm not even going to say avoid these as much as you can, I'm going to say 100% do not consume. Aspartame, which is found in NutraSweet and Equal, breaks down to phenylalanine, aspartic acid, and methanol. If children are not able to break down phenylalanine, it's incredibly toxic to them. Many adults will complain of headaches, psychiatric problems, mood disorders, panic, manic episodes, and I've actually even seen white lesions or white bumps coming in through the skin, and it actually ends up being the artificial sweeteners that those patients are consuming, because the issue with artificial sweeteners is it's essentially a toxin to the body. Your body does not know how to metabolize it, so it's going to try to get it out of the body in any way it can, and the skin is one of those elimination organs. Saccharin is an unstable sugar derivative. It can cause cancer in animals, specifically bladder cancer. Acesulfame K, or sunnet, is a derivative of acetoacetic acid. It can stimulate insulin release and therefore can cause low blood sugar attacks. So especially for my diabetics reaching for the no sugar foods or the low-cal foods, you really want to pay attention to how it's actually affecting your blood sugars, because it may cause them to drop. And then sucralose, which is a chlorinated sugar. Now, my memory is escaping me right now, but it was either sucralose or aspartame that was used as medical warfare back in one of the world wars, and they used it as a undetectable neurological agent that would actually affect the neurological system and the brain system of the enemy lines. So if we're thinking about where it originally derived from and what we're using it as now, it's something that I would definitely avoid as much as possible, especially if it was considered a warfare agent. When it comes to our salts, we're going to see a lot of table salt, which is essentially sodium chloride. We're going to see baking soda or sodium bicarbonate, disodium phosphate, MSG, which, yes, it has been banned from being in labels, but you will still find it as other names, or it'll even just say monosodium glutamate, especially in a lot of Asian cooking, you'll see a lot of that. Sodium sulfate, sodium nitrites. And if we look at a label, here's an idea of it. It'll just say flat out salt or baking soda, sodium acid. When it comes to salt, I am not one of those people to say avoid it. I think it does have its place, but definitely try to get more of a high mineralized or iodized salt, because it'll have a lot more nutrients in it than just plain old table salt. Now, I wanted to touch a little bit on some food sensitivities, because this comes up a lot with people. Gluten-free eating, and then of course cow dairy-free eating. So the nice thing about this video is you can pause this at any time and you can look at this entire list at your leisure. But here's a list of all the foods that do contain gluten that you want to be avoiding. Beyond this list are a lot of sneaky ones where you may not have even thought that gluten was involved in it. So we have our candies, like in Canada, Smarties, some chocolate bars will have it, flavored coffees and teas, sausages, hot dogs, deli meats, modified food starches. Even in some of your seasoning mixes, you'll actually find gluten. So depending on how sensitive you are, these are the types of things that you want to be avoiding. When it comes to avoiding cow dairy, and I can certainly attest to this because I have a sensitivity to cow dairy, the obvious ones that we want to avoid are milk, cream, sour cream, cheese, ice cream, so on and so on. But a lot of people say, well, I'm avoiding lactose, therefore I'm avoiding dairy. Unfortunately, that's not the case. A lot of people actually have sensitivities to the whey protein or the casein protein found in dairy, not necessarily an inability to break down the enzyme. And if you look at Sally Fallon's Nourishing Tradition book, she actually has a page listed specifically for our evolution towards breaking down cow dairy. And to be completely honest, from what she states, we have actually developed the lactase enzyme. We originally weren't born with the ability to break down lactose. So we've now had to adapt to the fact that we're having so much of it. So only a select few of us can actually break it down. So it's not like if you can't break it down, you're the odd man out. In fact, the people that can consume cow dairy are kind of the odd people out, or they've just kind of adapted to their environment through evolution. So this is just, I thought it was an interesting tidbit. But these are some of the other foods that may contain casein that you didn't think about. Casein, again, being the protein found in cow dairy, like margarine, dairy-free cheeses, or something that says dairy-free may still have casein in it. Hot dogs can have it, lunch meat, sausages, that sort of thing. So you want to be really careful. And then, of course, when we talk about not having dairy, the first thing that comes up is, well, how am I going to get my calcium? And so a lot of my patients think, well, if I go dairy-free or if my children go dairy-free, then their bones are going to break. And unfortunately, that's not the case if you are consuming a well-balanced diet, especially high in your dark green vegetables, like kale and Swiss chard and broccoli. Collard greens have a huge amount. Sesame seeds or in tahini, you can actually get a fair amount of calcium. Kelp, flax seeds, almonds. So as long as you're eating whole foods, you will get all the dietary requirements of calcium that you need. So I kind of went through this very quickly, but I hope that gives you a few ideas of how to get started at the grocery store. Again, you want to minimize the amount of aisles that you go down in order to maximize your time at the grocery store. Come planned and come full. Make a list, stick to it. Organize yourself through the grocery store as you get accustomed to that. Become label savvy. So here we have the Healthy Heart Check and the Guiding Star labeling system, which were actually created by dietitians. And they based that labeling system on the amount of fiber, the amount of fat, and the amount of calories found in the food. Does not necessarily mean that it's a healthier choice for you. You want to eat a little bit of every color every single day. And for those that are just getting started, or if you're trying to lose weight, definitely recording everything that goes into your mouth is an incredibly valuable thing for you to do. It'll keep you eating less and it'll also keep you accountable. If you want extra help with this type of thing, with eating healthy, with focusing on more of a maintenance plan, you certainly can pick up my book, Maximized Health, found on my website, www.themaximmovement.com. Chapters 6 through 8 are all about maximizing your maintenance plan, which will again reiterate a lot of what we talked about here. It'll give you a nice dietary plan, a list of foods to eat, a list of foods to avoid, how to read labels, and then it goes on to a weight loss program, a exercise program, as well as things to think about with regards to personal care products and so on. We also have a 52-week newsletter campaign. So every single week you're going to get a video just like this that's going to help you maximize on your health potential, and you get 52 of those absolutely free. So please check that out also and sign up to our newsletter on the website and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Questions or concerns, don't hesitate to ask. Again, I'm Dr. Andrea Maxim, naturopathic doctor, the creator of the Maxim movement, and as always, have a happy and healthy day.